Hey, Teresa.
Hello. Um, so where do I start? I have like two different types of questions, but the first one was related to rosewood
Oh yeah.
and a
Uh,
protocol for rosewood and really around soul retrieval. I've probably just been following what I need to use around that.
mhm.
Um, because I was called to get it and I had a bath and I guess kind of like Linda too. I've had some pretty wild interesting dreams in the last 2 nights, and I think it's just unresolved issues and processing things and
Sure,
collecting pieces of myself.
sure, yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a bit more that I could do consciously with Rosewood.
And just because you feel drawn to Rosewood, or
Yes, it just said you need me, start
you
working
need,
with me.
okay, well, let me look up Rosewood here.
Yeah, and I think I looked it up. Let me just put when I purchased it and then I looked at it, I'm like, okay, makes sense. The soul retrieval. But I think there was another one in here. Um, it's really about punishing oneself and self-sabotage. Probably is also a part of that, or an attachment of projections that
Okay. Mm, okay. Let me just look at you here.
okay.
Interesting. Okay. I would say, there's this pattern that um depending on what oil you use, it has, it's like all the patterns, it has different properties, but the pattern itself helps with like realizing, perceiving, but then also helping something to fall away. It could be
Hmm.
old perception, it could be an attachment, it could be, who knows.
Yep.
But it's throat minor, back throat, and then jaws, temples, back head, and then forehead.
Okay. So it's
And you could sit and think of situations, but you could also just do that and let it do what it's going to do.
okay.
And you could even take a few drops of it internally before you do it.
Okay.
Um, that's one thing that's really nice about Rosewood.
Hmm.
it's very, very gentle. Like it's very, very soft. It's very like it's not going to make anything happen, you know. Like you look at something like tea tree, like we were just talking about tea tree or peppermint or cinnamon. It's like the Marines hitting the beach. Ugh, this is going to happen, right? Where rosewood's just like almost like kind of like soothing and nurturing, and it allows a process to happen, but like in its own time,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And uh, I like that pattern for you, like the because like what they call soul retrieval is really like fractured piece. Like even the word fractured is not the right word. I would say it's compressed pieces of the ego,
Hmm.
and they're usually compressed because there's something painful or traumatic that happened. And even if you go through and you do like say release work on traumas and things like that, you kind of release things that are in your awareness, but in these compressed pieces, it's like it's not able to access that. And so what
Hmm.
happens sometimes is you'll be fine and then you step into that piece and it's almost like you forget who you are a little bit and you're just in that piece. And then you're able to step back out of it and you're like, whoa, God, I got a little weird there. When really it was you're just stepping into a piece of the psyche that you're not accessing during the normal everyday processes. And so, shamanically they refer to that as soul retrieval, and they have
Hmm.
explanations about it all. But if you look at what's happening, even like when you're dealing with they used to call it multiple personality syndrome, but now they call it dissociative identity disorder. But
Hmm.
you know, even in the terminology in that condition, I really like looking at conditions like that because in the extreme, you can see
Hmm.
the subtle in people who don't have that issue, but you can see like it's like one hundredth of that.
Hmm.
It's just like that person got so traumatized where those happen. And even like when I was doing that work with a psychologist, they would use the term fractured a lot. And so at first I was like okay, so there's fractured pieces that we got to call back. And the more that I did the work, I was like, they're not fractured. It's just like they're compressed. They're just still there, but they're so compressed that when you step into it, you almost kind of lose your normal everyday person and you're in this like trauma person and then you step back out. It's still the same person, but it's like how the body would form a cyst around something,
Hmm.
about like a foreign object or some toxic thing in the body. The body would go, well, wrap that up, keep it isolated, not gonna bother you. The
Hmm.
mind does a thing like that somewhat.
Yep.
And the thing that I like, and everybody has these, like
Hmm.
to a certain degree. Some of us might have a lot of them, and we look at dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder. You know, that's usually somebody who's been heavily traumatized, and it's a defense mechanism, and they have substantially more than the normal person.
Hmm.
But the mechanism is there for all of us.
Hmm.
And so, the in like tantric Buddhism, there's like this saying to wake up like while you're awake, to wake up from the dream, or the dream within the dream within the dream within the dream.
Hmm.
And what that's talking about is actually these little like compressed pieces, because
Hmm.
they affect you. It's just you're not always able to access them.
Yep. Um, totally makes sense or aware.
And the thing
Yeah.
that I like about something like Rosewood it will be very gentle in accessing and integrating that. And if there's part of you is like, yeah, I'm not ready for that, the rosewood would allow you to go, okay, I can do it when I'm ready. You know,
Hmm.
or you know, and it would be on a very almost like unconscious level that you would engage it or hold back or whatever. But you know, there are some oils and some healing modalities where it's like what we were saying before. No, this is going to happen. It's going to happen right now. You're gonna have
Hmm.
to make your peace with it. And you know, that's the thing with trauma. Like, is you want to be able to process that, but you also want to be able to not make it worse. You know, and when I would work with other healers or psychologists, that like they get weirdly aggressive about trauma sometimes, about getting the person to access it. And I was like, the goal is not to traumatize this person in treating trauma. Like, you know, you let them set their own pace, you know, and I go back to there was this really nice lady that I think I treated her like 6 years, like every week for 6 years before she was like ready to go. Okay, I'm ready to start addressing some of these traumas from my past. And had I pushed her at any point prior to that, she would have never addressed it. But like, you know, she had been so traumatized that she needed to know that it was a safe place and not just like, oh, I feel good. She was like, I need to feel good and I need to watch this for a while, you know? And so Rosewood kind of does that. Like it just allows things to move in a way that is okay. And if you want to go fast, it will facilitate that. And if you want to go slow, it will also facilitate, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. I think it was facilitating. I can't remember when I did the salt bath. It was last night or the night before.
Yeah.
And I kind of,
Rosewood's very nice. Like you know,
yeah.
it's unfortunate, you know, and this is a resource of the rosewood where it's like, you know, where they said it's sustainable because it actually became endangered. But you know, this is like something that's been cultivated and you know, it's made for, you know, oils and things like that. So there's not very much of like true rosewood floating around very much anymore. But even in like in Buddhist practices, um, there are certain things that you do where you use a rosewood mala. Like, you know,
Mm,
it's the same idea. Like you're doing something very gentle, but like you're generating movement, but it's almost like you're being soothed as you're moving through something both at the same time,
hmm.
you know.
I love that.
Yeah, I love rosewood. Like I back about 20 years ago, man, I was just it was like Rosewood was like a new friend or new girlfriend or something like and another thing about Rosewood like you know I was just always talking about Rosewood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it's
it's just because it's
understandable.
so nice and gentle, like it's just it gets the job done but it does it in such a gentle way.
Yeah. Would that be good as a body tonic as well?
Yeah, you could do it as a body tonic, you could do it I mean, you know, it's good for like some kinds of bacterial infections.
Hmm.
And you know how like sometimes like in older people they'll get like in infections in the groin area, like
Hmm.
everything gets kind of raw and stuff and inflamed. Rosewood is so gentle that you can mix it with water and then just have them like pour it over that area and it won't
Hmm.
irritate or inflame it. I mean, it's super, super, super gentle.
Wow.
And so, and it still has that antibacterial effect. You
Hmm.
know, I would say that like if I was trying to use it for trying to prevent colds and flus, it wouldn't be like tough enough for that. But for just like psychological healing and bacterial things, and
Hmm.
I like it for the immune system too. Like,
Okay.
uh, but yeah, it's very nice.
Very nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and you could use it super long term.
Okay.
You know.
And then just before the practice, take a couple of drops internally.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, you
Uh,
could take a couple drops internally 2 or 3 times a day, but like definitely
okay.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great. Um, I don't know enough about rosewood other than I love the smell. Is it a plant or is it actually a part of a tree?
Yeah, I think it's a shrub if I remember right. Let me look that up.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's like maybe you could call it a shrub or like a small tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It is an evergreen tree though.
Oh, wow. Of
Yeah,
course it
I
is.
wouldn't have guessed that.
I'm sitting in evergreen country.
Yeah. Most of it comes out of Brazil.
I got it. Okay. Mm,
And
very
a little
nice.
weird fact, like they use it for chopsticks a lot.
Okay.
I know.
I'm
I
wondering.
think because it's so pretty. Like,
Yeah.
would like nice or fancy chopsticks.
Huh. I'm wondering if I've owned a pair.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So